Do you find yourself holding on to missed opportunities from the past or missed actions that you didn't take? Maybe a relationship that you let sneak on by? Is there any value in holding on to that? Or would you be better served making peace with it and letting it go? Hi, my name is K.A Bloch, and I am the award winning poet and author of 4 books that consist of poetry and prose. My channel is called The Practical Poet, and each week on my channel, I feature a different video poetry reading with a poem from one of my 4 books, or maybe even some new material. And I also have a blog at thepracticalpoet.com where I show the written poem along with a little bit of the backstory or the prose or some of the inspiration or sometimes just my random thoughts. And this week's video poetry reading, I'm featuring a poem from my 3rd book called Gather Seeds of Hope. And this is a poem called Regret. And this is about all of those missed opportunities that we hold on to and maybe things that we wish we had done differently in our past. And it's a theme that I repeat a couple of times in this same book. There's a poem in the same book called Lessons, which talks about, kind of things that you learn along the way and maybe things that people that you wish you had pursued something with or not pursued something with, or etc. There's also a poem in here called A Letter to Yourself, and that has to do with if you're familiar with reality TV, especially like on The Bachelor, or I'm even embarrassed to say it, but like Married at First Sight, they always have the participants write a letter to themselves as a younger person and kind of outline how their life is going to go, some of the challenges and some of the struggles. And the intent of that is to kind of make peace with how their life has turned out, and to kind of let things go that that they can't change, so that they don't bring it forward into their new relationship. So it's kind of along that theme of kind of making peace with things and letting it go. In my 2nd book called Scatter Seeds of Kindness, there was a poem called The Weight of Memories, and I have done a video poetry reading on that, which I can link below. And that's along that same thing of holding on to memories that aren't serving you very well, along kind of that goes hand in hand with regret, really, when you think about it. If you're holding on to a memory, maybe a relationship or a job or what have you, and you're kicking yourself for the way it turned out, essentially that's a regret. And so they do really go hand in hand, and they both are heavy, and they both can weigh you down. It's like carrying a big old backpack full of bricks on your back. It just, you slouch forward, you may be angry, you may be sad. It doesn't really serve you to hold on to either those memories or the regret. There is a couple of different scenarios in this poem that's going to kick off the poem Regret. And these people are dealing with some pretty heavy regrets. I mean, a lot of our regrets that we deal with are, like I mentioned earlier, maybe a job that we didn't go after, or a date, we didn't ask somebody out on a date, or we didn't accept a date or something like that. And we kind of wonder, boy, I wonder how that would have turned out, or maybe that would have been the love of my life and I let them get away. But the people in this poem are dealing with some pretty serious regrets. And like I mentioned, there's nothing that they can do to change it. It is what it is. But maybe regret can be a powerful tool if it spurs us forward to make some changes in our life. Like going back to that letter to yourself that the reality TV shows often have I don't want to call them contestants, the participants write, or even if you're in therapy, it's a common tactic to journal and to kind of write a letter to yourself to make peace with your life and where you're at right now, so that you can make those changes. And then, in the next 10 years or so, you're not burdened down with regrets from opportunities you could have taken today that you didn't. So it's a way of making peace and letting it go. And oftentimes at the end of that letter writing exercise, the participants, they ball it up and they throw it into a fire, and they're like, okay, that's done. And then they can move on. So again, the people in this poem dealing with some pretty heavy regrets, but like I mentioned, regret, if you use it to spur you forward, it can be a good and powerful tool. So say, for example, there was a job that you wanted to go for and you didn't, and now you find that you're stuck in a job that you're not happy with. Maybe that regret and that the feelings that you're carrying with you are going to spur you forward so that you do find a job that you really enjoy going to every day. Or if you didn't ask that person out on a date, if you find that suddenly you spark a connection with somebody because of that past regret and because of that missed opportunity, you're not going to let that happen again. So whether or not it's going to turn out well, you're going to take that chance and you're going to ask that person on a date or accept the date if somebody asks you out, because you don't want to be plagued down by the what ifs. And that's how a lot of us live our life. The what if, we wonder what would have happened, what if I had done this, or what if I had accepted that, or what if I had done this differently. And the what ifs, along with their regret, they really don't serve us. We can't go back in time. So regret really is, it's like a backward emotion. It keeps us looking in reverse. It keeps us looking in the rear view mirror, and that prevents us from looking forward. We can't look forward and move ahead if our thoughts and our viewpoint is behind us, looking in the rear view mirror and constantly wondering, that what if, or I should have, or I could have. It doesn't serve us. There was a book that I mentioned in the prose that accompanies regret. There is a book by an author named Daniel Pink, and that book is called The Power of Regret. And he outlines the different types of regrets that people live with and may experience. And the first one is an action regret. So that is where you maybe did something or said something to somebody, and you'll see that different examples in the poem when I get into it. An action that somebody did that had great consequences to somebody else. And if you're living with something like that, that's an action regret. Conversely, there's the inaction regrets, and those are the opportunities that you did not take, that missed opportunity, that the action that you missed to accept that job, or to move to a different state, or to pursue a relationship, or just the inaction, just kind of sitting back and just not acting on something that maybe now you're regretting that you didn't do. And then there's the moral regret. And that is, maybe if you cheat or you steal, or, you have something kind of just morally plaguing you, that you did something wrong, and you just can't shake it or can't let it go. And so the people in this poem, they're all dealing with those different types of regrets, and some of them even cross over. You may have a moral regret because of an action that you took. If you had an affair on your spouse, you may be dealing with the regret of that action and the consequences that it brings. And then you may also be plagued with a moral regret. How could you have done that to your spouse? And how could you have destroyed your marriage or your relationship? So there's a lot of times the regrets do cross over into each other. They kind of cross those lines. And in the book, Daniel Pink states that the regret that most people carry with them the most is the inaction regret. We tend to kick ourselves over and over for the opportunities that we didn't take in life. And those opportunities are most likely gone. If it was the job that we didn't pursue, that job is most likely gone. If it's, a relationship that we didn't ask somebody out on, most likely, they've moved on, they may be married or in a relationship, and, that opportunity is gone. So those are the things that tend to plague us the most. The moral, that can be pretty heavy as well, but maybe we can try to make some peace with that. And the action, same thing. There are some pretty grave consequences to some of the actions that we take, especially you're going to see with the people in the poem here. But maybe we can make some peace with that. I think it's the inaction, though, where we're really plagued with the what ifs. We sat back and we were passive, and we didn't grab life by the horns, as they say, and life kind of got away, the opportunity kind of got away, and we're really kicking ourselves for that. And I think it's that is accompanied by the what ifs. And that's what really tends to plague us most of all. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get into the video poetry reading of regret. If you wanted to not listen for the video poetry reading, which I would love it if you'd stick around, but if you want to check it out, it is listed on my blog at thepracticalpoet.com/blog, and you would look for the poem Regret. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and get into that video poetry reading. A quick sip of tea. We have a warmer day, kind of damp here today, but gloomy and cloudy. It looks like it's going to rain. So this nice warm tea feels really good on my throat. And I'm going to go ahead and put my glasses on. I feel like I say this every week. This is a bit of a longer poem. So I hope that you stick around for the full thing. But again, it is available, the written copy, on my blog if you choose to head over there and read that, which I would love that if you would do that. So here is the poem Regret from Gather Seeds of Hope. A man cheats on his girlfriend. He doesn't even know why. When he finally confesses to her, she swiftly tells him goodbye. Years later, it still haunts him. He recalls it every day, especially since he thinks of her as the one who got away. One night, a woman drinks too much and gets behind the wheel. She remembers running the red light and hearing the tires squeal. Years later, it still haunts her as her brain always retrieves the sight of the boy who lost his life and the family that still grieves. A young man steals some goods one day as he wanders around a store. He shoves them into his pocket and makes his way out the door. He doesn't know why he did it. He had the money to pay, but the price he paid was much greater, as his arrest record does convey. A woman stares at a pile of bills from living beyond her means. She's sorry she missed out on college and for not following through on her dreams. She wonders if it is too late for her dreams to still pursue, then shrugs and sighs in exhaustion. There's already too much to do. What do these all have in common? These scenes they cannot forget. The past is haunting them daily. I believe that is called regret. Regret is a powerful emotion. It can impact our lives each day. It seems there is nothing we can do to make it go away. Regret is a backward emotion. It keeps our thoughts in reverse. It prevents us from moving forward and weighs us down like a curse. Regret crashes a party when we're trying to have some fun. It reminds us we shouldn't be laughing, and the jovial mood is done. Regret appears in a movie. A scene triggers a memory. It takes center stage to remind us how different our lives could be. Regret takes the wheel while we're driving, and the radio plays a sad song. Regret puts the microphone up to our lips and persuades us to sing along. Regret takes a seat at a wedding as someone watches the bride and groom. Regret whispers, "It could have been you," and sweeps memories in like a broom. Regret is a bit of a bully, always trying to show us who's boss, making us wear indiscretion around our necks like an albatross. So, what can we do to fight back and reclaim some peace and goodwill? How do we move past mistakes that regret tries so hard to instill? We cannot go back in time and correct the bad choices we made. Perhaps the first step is forgiving ourselves, and in time, the memories may fade. Maybe the next step is to find the good, embrace blessings, and have gratitude. There's much in life to be grateful for. By chance, that might help lift the mood. That doesn't mean to forget. It will always be part of our past. But making amends where we can may help bring some peace at last. So that was the video poetry reading of Regret. And like I mentioned earlier, people dealing with some pretty hefty regrets in here. The moral dilemma of the man who cheated on his girlfriend and really considers her the one who got away. He thinks of it every day. That's really weighing him down. The second scenario, the woman who drove drunk and took somebody's life. I mean, boy, how do you even deal with that? That's a really, really heavy one. And again, and that falls into the category of an action regret and a moral regret as well. And same thing with the man who cheated on his girlfriend. It kind of crosses that line into both those types of regrets. The man who stole the goods, he had the money. Why did he do it? He doesn't know. He's struggling to make peace with that. He doesn't understand why he did it. But now he's got an arrest record. So again, same thing, kind of a moral and an action regret. And then the woman who didn't go to college and didn't pursue her dreams, she's struggling with the inaction regret. So many times, like I mentioned, the regrets do kind of cross over into each other. In this poem, if you notice, regret kind of becomes a character. Regret becomes personified in a way. I was reminded of a video poetry reading I did a few weeks ago where I talked about the poem from Emily Dickinson, the poem called Because I Could Not Stop for Death. And in that poem, Death became a character. Death was personified as he drove a carriage that came to pick up this woman and take her to a final resting place. So Death became a character. And I feel a lot like that in this poem. Regret becomes a bit of a character. Regret comes in when you're trying to have fun at a party, and you feel that regret, you feel that black cloud come over you, and you think, gosh, how can I be laughing, or how can I be having a good time when I have this thing hanging over me? And then regret, you're just watching a movie and something triggers it. Here comes regret. And it's going to put that thought in your mind of something that you didn't pursue or that you didn't do, or how your life could have been different. And then especially at the wedding, you're sitting at a wedding, and then here comes regret saying, that could have been you up there. There's your person up there, and you let him get away, and all those memories that come in. So, regret is a bit of a bully, it says in here. Regret comes along at times when we're just trying to live our life, and maybe for 5 minutes we've put it behind us, but nope, here comes regret, like a Debbie Downer entering the room. And regret is going to say, no, 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 you shouldn't be laughing, you shouldn't be having a good time because you did this thing, or you didn't do this thing, or you hurt somebody, or you said something, or did something, or what have you. And like a black cloud, it's hanging over you. And so, like the poem concludes, what can we do about it? We can't change the past, but we can stop the regret from impacting our future in such a bad way. So, we can't go back in time, but maybe we can forgive ourselves. Maybe that's the first step, is to find peace with it, forgive ourselves, and say that, maybe if there is a lesson to be learned, or if there's something that can be made from this, it's spurring us forward to do things differently, or be a better person, or to just learn a lesson to not do that again. And that's really the best thing that we can do. And it doesn't mean that we're going to forget. We're never going to forget the action, or what we did or didn't do. The what ifs are probably always going to plague us at some point, but we can start to make peace with it and make amends where we can. If we hurt somebody, can we go to them? Can we make amends? Can we repair the relationship? The video poetry reading that I did last week was a poem called Betrayal. And that talks about how, sometimes betrayal, it's a horrible thing, but it can lead to trust being rebuilt, and rebuilding the relationship on a different foundation. And previous poetry readings had to do with that same theme, and the poems of forgiveness and humble pie. So those are all available on my channel and on my blog, and they all talk about that common theme of making amends and making apologies, and so that we aren't plagued with this regret. So with that, I'm going to leave you. I thank you so much for listening to this video poetry reading of Regret, again from my third book called Gather Seeds of Hope. And by the way, this is the only one of my books that's available in a nice matte hardcover. So you can find that on my blog at thepracticalpoet.com/books. If you go to the blog tab, that is where you can find the video poetry reading of the poems that I've mentioned so far, including the thing about betrayal, humble pie, forgiveness, and then the weight of memories are all available on there as well. And I will do my very best to link them below. And with that, if you like the video poetry reading and you want to hear next week when I do another one, or every week going forward, I hope that you like and subscribe, and you will be notified. And with that, it is Sunday. I am off to run errands. I regret not getting them done yesterday, so I have to do them today. And gosh, if that's the only regret that I have in life, I'm pretty lucky. So I hope that you're having a wonderful weekend, and we will chat again soon. Thanks. Bye.